Hi, I'm Professor Green, and now we'll be doing Chapter 3, Part 3. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. Today, we'll be talking a little bit more about motivation, leading into motivation. Why are people motivated at work? And so it all starts a little bit with attitude. So, attitude is a predisposition to respond in a positive or negative way to something. If you like or dislike someone or something, you're expressing an attitude. So it's important to remember that an attitude, like your values, is a hypothetical concept. You don't see it, touch it, and actually isolates an attitude. So rather that attitudes are inferred from the things people say or do. And that means also that they can be changed, right? So let's go into deeper what attitudes are. They Attitudes like values that let me go ahead and move the Zoom tools here so I can read it properly. Attitudes are influenced by values and acquired from the same sources of values. So you get your attitudes from your friends. Maybe someone has a really cool attitude. They love Barbie, for example, or your teachers, right? Maybe your teachers are very Democrats and they don't like Trump, so you have a bad attitude towards Trump. Your parents, role models, culture will show us attitude. And so components of attitude, there are three different components. First, the cognitive, then the affective, and then the behavioral. So the first one is based on beliefs, values, and information. My job lacks responsibility, and this is important to me. So you identify what the first part of that is. Then the effect that creates this effect. You know what? I don't like my job. And that influences your behavior. Then, you know what? I think I'm going to quit my job, right? So understanding attitudes and organizational behavior is really important because for employees, we want to make sure that we keep them at the job at the workplace, and that we also, help them form their attitudes about their work, which I'll go into in a few slides here. So cognitive dissonance is a term that'll show up a few times throughout this chapter or throughout this textbook. So to describe the mental discomfort that results from holding conflicting attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. So if you believe one thing, but the organization is doing something else, then you'll have some cognitive dissonance. So we try and reduce or eliminate dissonance by either helping people change their existing beliefs, adding new beliefs, or reducing the importance of their beliefs. And so what are job attitudes exactly? Job satisfaction is one of the first ones. An attitude, there are negative, positive or negative feelings toward a job, coworkers, and the work environment. Organizational commitment, the degree of loyalty that an individual feels towards an organization. Organizational identification is the extent to which one feels personally identified with one's membership, that it becomes part of your self-concept, that my husband, for example, has been an entrepreneur for most of his life. He's identified very much with the organization that he has helped build. And now as he's going to retire, he's having a hard time letting that go. And employee engagement. This is one of the key things that we talk about in organizational behavior, the connection with the organization and your passion for one's job. Because when employees are engaged, they're really helping to move the company forward. And when they're not engaged, then we have a problem, for better or for worse. So how do attitudes influence work behavior? Because attitudes are because they influence, because they truly do influence the behavior. As I just mentioned, a highly engaged individual will be more likely to help others, do something extra to improve performance, and speak positively about the organization to others. So companies obviously are very interested in promoting and sustaining high positive levels of employees' attitudes and engagement. So that's the whole point as to why we study values and attitudes in this course. So what are positive workplace behaviors? and they make employees stand out. We can say that people make two key decisions about their employment and organizational membership: the decision to belong and the decision to perform. And maybe you never thought of it that way, but I thought that was really an interesting way to think about it. You do make a decision when you come to work, if you're going to, connect with the people that you work with, and if you're actually going to do something when you get there. As we talked about this idea already in class of quiet quitting, there's this whole idea that people are going to work, but they're really doing the minimal amount of work, and that's a problem. So, but we also know that not everyone who belongs to an organization performs at the same level. Just to talk about that a little bit. So task performance is defined as the proficiency with which one performs activities that contribute to the organization's effectiveness, such as implementing part of its technological process or providing it with necessary materials or services. So what you actually do when you go to work every day, it's carrying out the essential responsibilities of the mission. Proactive behavior. I don't know if we go into this too deeply, but right, self-initiated, focused action to change yourself or the situation, taking charge to improve processes, taking initiative, seeking feedback, crafting your job, right? So, tuning into what needs to be fine-tuned with the work that you're doing, preventing problems, and speaking up in a constructive way. So they all involve taking control to make things happen, right? And we can all probably have had that experience where sometimes we just don't feel like being proactive if we're not motivated. So organizational citizenship behaviors, a willingness to go beyond the call of duty, go the extra mile at work. And so a good corporate citizen does other things to help others. Or advance the performance of the organization as a whole. So these are the people that we, want to be working in our organization. If you were an entrepreneur, wouldn't you want a person like this as opposed to someone who is quietly quitting? Negative workplace behaviors we need to address as well. So, because they are also highly impactful. Bad attitudes, dissatisfaction, and this happens often because of stress, burnout, poor morale, right? That, we'll talk about the Theranos case that kind of jumps to mind, that after, a couple of years of Elizabeth Holmes hiding things and not trusting her employees, there's a lot of that happened here. They were working long hours. So there's a whole equation of things that went wrong at the end of her organization. So withdrawal, right? This quiet quitting, pulling back from work activities, exerting only the minimal work effort, absenteeism, turnover, maybe you'll eventually quit. And this is all affected by your job attitude and your job satisfaction. Silence is another way of withdrawal, withholding input or information when you really do have a suggestion or concern. It's just not a lack of speech, but it's failing to share information that is useful or relevant, or to even say what's on your mind. People get frustrated when they can't say what's on their mind. It can be damaging, not only to decision making, but also to morale. So if you go into a meeting and you don't say anything, but then afterwards you say to your colleague, "Oh, I really wanted to say that, but I'm just so, burnt out and I just don't have the energy anymore to contribute." That colleague now is also, connecting to your bad attitude. And so the morale of the whole organization starts to drop. So what are some counterproductive workplace behaviors? Um, right. So the opposite of organizational citizenship shows up as counterproductive work behaviors. Again, job satisfaction, disrupts relationship processes, performance in the workplace, a wide variety of behaviors: work avoidance, physical and verbal aggression, bad mouthing, outright work sabotage, and even theft. I've never been in an organization, thank goodness, that had theft that I know of, but it can definitely get to that. I've definitely been in places where there's bad mouthing, and verbal aggression. We can't not talk about bullying, right? Because sometimes this counterproductive behavior manifests itself in an abusive, demeaning, intimidating, or violent manner, right? So, and if if someone is bullied on a regular basis, then it's not just a simple bad behavior, right? And that's become very, very serious in the workplace. And if anybody ever feels bullied, then they should certainly go directly to their HR manager. And we also need to talk about, when we talk about organizational behavior, work home spillovers. So when dissatisfaction at work affects what happens at home and vice versa, right? So high daily job satisfaction shows positive emotion after work as well. I can definitely see that with my husband as he goes through this ups and down of debating whether he should retire, sell the business. When he has a good day, it's great to be at home with him. When he has a bad day at work and he's not getting an offer on his company or he's not getting the work, it's not so much fun to be at home with him. And I'm sure he says the same about me. So if there's a study about spouse or significant other evaluation, so more positive at-home emotions were reported at days when workers experience higher job satisfaction. And that is it for chapter 3. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a fun chapter. I hope you too enjoyed it, and I look forward to discussing it in class.